Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on back to another episode of Speak the Truth podcast. Sorry for coming at you guys a little bit late. More personal stuff that ended up popping up that I had to attend to, but not a big deal. Hey, listen, check this out. We've got two former military members standing next to the president here at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier on Memorial Day yesterday. That's pretty freaking cool. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw something like this, when we had the president, the vice president, and the SecDef, two of which had served in the military. And I think it's, I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. You know, yesterday was Memorial Day. It was a tough day for a lot of people. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know what we got going on for today's show. We've got reactions coming up from the Trump administration on the recent Russian strikes over inside of Kiev and a couple other things. We're going to talk about the prisoner swap update that ended up taking place, 1,000 prisoners, 1,000 for 1,000, right? Then we're going to talk about some ease of targeting restrictions that ended up getting let up for certain countries' munitions that they supplied to Ukraine and what that's going to end up meaning for the war itself. We're going to go over and we're going to talk about Gaza humanitarian aid distribution points that U.S. contractors had taken over, how multiple of them were in operation. And it seemed like almost the same moment that we got told that they were moving and they were providing aid, that a couple hours later, Gazans overran the dang place. So we're going to go over that today as well, along with a heck of a lot more. Oh, yeah, and the Ayatollah, he's back to ranting and raving again. It doesn't seem like there is going to be any sort of relief in place for them for the new coming up. Is that Rob's Rack? What are you talking about with Rob's Rack? What are you talking about, Rob's Rack? I don't know anything about. No. What are you talking about with Rob's Rack? Guess who's back, ladies and gentlemen? Yes. I see you all down there in the chat. Good to have you in there. Putin playing Trump like a fool. Yeah, we're gonna go over that actually. So what I actually did was I took quotes from Trump on the 19th, 20th. Let me see if I have the dates correct on this, but like when we get into it. But I have Trump's on. Quotes from Trump on the 19th, 20th, and 21st. And those quotes actually personally show just how kind of like a fool he got played to be. And I want to bring up this because yesterday was Memorial Day, and I do bringing these in. There's somebody that traditionally over on my Facebook, not that I use Facebook anymore, that have always kind of like honored on Memorial Day. This is him. His name is Mikhail Golan. He was a U.S. Army Green Beret that I served with. He ended up losing his life on January 1st of 2018. One hell of a soldier. I met this guy when I went through selection, and he was probably one of the toughest damn Green Berets that I had ever met in my life. He had already been wounded prior to even joining SF and losing his life on January 1st. He lost his life. Audio, Matt, you guys can't hear me good. I don't understand all these guys. You keep cutting out on audio. You know, it shouldn't be cutting out at all. I've got it crisp and clean on my end, and when I check it up over here on the stream, it says it's healthy. So seems to be good on for me. If you guys are having streaming issues, reopen it back up. For some reason, that's been happening over on YouTube. I'm going to get back into this. So, yeah, he lost his life on January 1, 2018. He was in an overwatch position on a mountainside in Nangarhar province, Afghanistan, when numerous ISIS fighters, it was a small element, numerous ISIS fighters ended up sneaking up the ridgeline and chucking hand grenades at them. Pretty much everybody was wounded up there on that ridgeline. And he came over and he talked to somebody that was shooting back and let them know that he was going to flank around and take care of them. When all of the dust cleared, Mikhail had gone around, conducted the flank, and killed all of the ISIS fighters that had creeped up into hand grenade range. Unfortunately, it wasn't without him being wounded, and he ended up expiring on that ridgeline, which is really, really sad. Some of the best damn Green Berets that I ever had the pleasure of meeting. He's actually one of the people that taught me to speak Russian when my Russian teacher was sick. He was able to fill in. This gentleman is greatly missed. Before we went over to Afghanistan, I was able to sit down with him and have some beers in Dubai. And sit back and just talk and laugh about kind of like how things had progressed and where we were at. And it's kind of sad to see him go. Him and many others like him. I mean, there's just so many that it's hard, but he is one that I end up sharing and talking about just kind of as a tradition so he doesn't end up dying. If you guys didn't know, there was a massive explosion over a chemical plant in freaking China today over in Shanghai. This thing was absolutely huge. I'm trying to remember what the heck it was that they were making, but either way, this thing freaking blew up. This reminds me of like some crap that you end up seeing over inside of Iran. Look at that. Whew. Sucker just goes flying. Look at these freaking deaths. David Hoffpower, we will talk about that coming up here in a little bit. He asked about the Taurus cruise missiles being supplied to Ukraine from Germany and what their ability is in order to get around the aerial defense systems. And in my opinion, dude, and it's the same thing that we talk about when it goes into, the skies over, Israel being guarded or the skies over Ukraine being guarded. It's the same thing when it goes over the skies over Russia, right? There is, you know what, we'll tackle it for you, brother. We'll answer that question. There is, if you were to just take one cruise missile and put it up against an aerial defense asset, or, kind of depends on what the different layer defense is and what's going on at the time. So how do I say this? There's a lot more that goes into that discussion than just a missile versus aerial defense system, because there's much more at play out in the sky. I'll touch on that here in a little bit. Kenneth, do you see the new unsub video this weekend that drops incriminating evidence on the DA, Erie County, and Buffalo school admin? No, but now I'm going to go check it out. If I got to do a response video, looks like that's what I'm going to end up doing. So no worries there. As far as disinformation goes, I know I've talked to you guys about bot farms. I don't know if you guys have actually seen these dang things before. I want you to take a look at this rack. And I want you to look at the amount of cell phones that are on here as they go down and they go out, right? These are the different bot farms. As a matter of fact, these are likely some of the ones that are targeting this channel and several others that are out there, along with engaging with people, stealing their money, doing all sorts of stuff. But these bot farms are powered by AI. Individuals can go in and access them and use them. But check this out, as this video rolls. This is kind of like one of those rather impressive things, I don't think people realize how big of an industry, how big of a business this is, and how much it actually affects what's taking place on the internet. I couldn't even estimate the amount of cell phones that are likely inside of this video, but I know it's insane. I mean, this is a huge room, and just one rack of that is freaking nuts. And then you go with multiple racks of all of that crap, and that's actually what's out there doing it. Yeah, that's freaking nuts. That's freaking wild. Khamenei over the weekend, all right, the Ayatollah has lost his freaking crap again on the United States and Israel. He's talking about teaming up with Pakistan. It doesn't seem like this is going to go anywhere, or it's going to let down at all. Khamenei has, how do I say? I just noticed he just lost it yesterday. He's talking about Pakistan's prime minister, all right, and his accompanying delegation met with Khamenei on Monday. All right, this is the Ayatollah. Ayatollah has came out pretty strong with support for Palestine and the people over inside of Gaza within the last 24 hours. In a historical letter, Khamenei addressed American students fighting for the Palestinian cause. On this occasion, we produced a series of media, blah, 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 blah. He had some more harsh words, and he talked about being able to stop the Zionist regime and everything else. But he's just been angry tweeting for the last freaking...
Hey, that's what one Iranian official...
Stop. He's just been angry tweeting for the last, I don't know, 24, 48, no, I don't know, maybe since Thursday, Friday is where he's been going off. And then this comes out, right? And I don't know if you guys have seen this before. I'm not a big fan of CNN or Aaron Burnett, but this opening portion is actually a pretty dang good report on the tensions between the U.S. and Iran and how big of a deal this is going to be. And we're going to end up having to freaking bomb the crap out of these guys.
No trust. That's what one Iranian official tells our Fred Pleitgen about talks with the U.S. President Trump's hopes of a breakthrough with Iran in danger, as the Iranians aren't even happy with his chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff. Fred Pleitgen is out front in Tehran.
Death to America and death to Israel chants at Friday prayers in Tehran. The prayer leader laying into the Trump administration as the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks hang in the balance.
Iran's leadership is telling the United States that they want a nuclear agreement, but they're also not afraid of a confrontation if the talks fail.
Tehran not happy with both President Trump and his chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, after Witkoff said the U.S. wouldn't allow Iran to continue enriching uranium as part of any deal. No way, there is no trust, this member of the elite Revolutionary Guard Corps tells me. They failed their previous tests towards the Iranian nation. However, we have initiated the talks to prove our intention is not war. We want the enrichment for medical and other purposes.
They want enrichment for medical and other purposes. That man can just straight up sit there and lie to the camera. CNN actually did a quasi decent job on this. Kind of got to give it to them. Yeah, 100%. It goes down to the enrichment and how badly we just don't want to allow them to do it, because they shouldn't, because they're tyrannical nut jobs, as you just saw in a Friday prayer service where they shout death to America. I don't know about you, but I always show up to church and pray to have other people dead.
The negotiations are unilateral, this woman says. Trump is trying to show his power, but it is our right to have nuclear capabilities. Iran has consistently said its nuclear program is purely civilian in nature, and Tehran insists on keeping its uranium enrichment capabilities. Iran's foreign minister acknowledging the talks are complicated. We stress the positions and principles of the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding the negotiations, he says. Our positions are completely clear and we insist on them. I think the American side now has a better and more clear picture of our position. President Trump.
I am not sure how CNN and ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that don't follow the channel or maybe you're tuning in for the first time, I give praise where praise is due. And this is stuff that I've been complaining about the entire time. I am not left. I am not right. I fall right smack dab in the center, ends up pissing up a lot of people. I lean more right in some instances. I lean more left in some instances. And most of the time I just side with the truth and the Constitution. So yeah, Iran can suck it. But the problem is that a lot of the things that we've been hearing out of this administration have been opposite of what's just been said in this video. Everything that I just heard in this video, like 100%, is all things that I have been sitting here screaming at on the top of my lungs on this channel, saying, listen, Iran's not about it. Khomeini hates us. The IRGC, like the sticking points enriching uranium, and yet the Trump admin will sit back and they'll say, hey, we've got more good things that are coming up in the future. We are continuing to engage in talks. Anybody want to guess when the new talk is? I don't know. I hadn't seen one scheduled this morning. I checked about an hour ago to see if there was one that was being scheduled while I was handling everything else. No, no new talks are scheduled. And, you know, it seems like this administration is sitting there telling everybody in the world that it's going to be okay, when in reality, it's not. Iran is very pissed off.
Is threatening even tougher measures against Iran if the talks fail. And American officials tell CNN intelligence suggests Israel is preparing for strikes against targets in Iran. Iranians we spoke to vowing a tough response if that happens. The United States knows better what will happen, he says. If things get serious, there will not be a country named Israel on earth. But for now, both.
And that right there is the crux of the entire situation. He says, you know, there's not going to be an Israel on earth. But the problem is that they've been trying to get rid of Israel for a long period of time. It's not very often you actually see IRGC members, allegedly via CNN, right? But it's not very often you get to see IRGC members on video giving like media media interviews. So I'm really curious. I couldn't imagine that Iran would just stop it. I wouldn't imagine that Iran would just allow these guys to come on camera and speak without everything being cleared, particularly to CNN. And I actually kind of got to give CNN some credit here, because at least they're freaking covering it and they're going over what a massive deal this is.
Up for the next round of talks, trying to forge a new nuclear deal.
You know, Erica, of course, the U.S. saying that progress continues to be made, but there is still work to be done. Of course.
Yeah. And that's the problem right there. Progress continues to be made. That's what we've been hearing lately from this administration, is progress has, continued to be made and everybody's, super happy. Well, let's talk about some progress, particularly that's taking place over inside Gaza. We're going to jump over there. They got 4 humanitarian aid distribution points that they ended up opening up. All right. And now I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you these distribution points that ended up getting opened up, and then I'm going to end up showing you how quickly they ended up getting shut down by Palestinians. I believe the number that I heard was 2 of 4 of these were opened as of this morning, and then it just kind of slowly started developing afterwards that they had been overran. Here's an overhead shot going into like one of these distribution points. I want to say it was the Tel Sultan area that ended up getting overran. Now, U.S. contractors are the ones that are actually on the ground distributing the humanitarian aid. And I want you to pause. And I want you to take a look at some of the stuff right here, to where you see like the trucks that are kind of like coming in and pouring in there, and maybe some of the, how do I want to say this because it's going to matter here, outer perimeter protective lines that have been set in place. And it does not appear to be that money. It looks like they've got HESCOs that are filled up all the way around, kind of set up in this way to allow people to go in and out. And there's a reason they're set up in this particular manner. And I don't feel like talking to you guys about why they're constructed the way they are. But yeah, HESCOs are great, But other than that, you're going to have a bunch of people that are going to be like pouring in there, and they can easily just jump in right over top. But this is all the humanitarian aid that has slowly been pouring into the Gaza Strip. And these U.S. contractors have actually started giving this out to the Palestinians. I was right. Look at that. HESCOs, right? As you go through. For those of you guys that don't know what HESCOs are, be happy. They suck. I'm not a big fan of them, but they are really good. They do fill with dirt. And it just sucks to be the ones that have to do it from time to time when you need it. We're going to take a look at some of these humanitarian aid packages that they ended up passing out, because some of them were actually kind of extensive. They had like decent amounts that went in there. IDF actually ended up coming out and making a statement on all of the freaking aid that went into Gaza.
During this war, the IDF has facilitated the entry of over 1.7 million tons of aid into Gaza. What has Hamas done? Hamas has looted that and prevented it from reaching the people of Gaza directly. We're standing here in this logistical area that the IDF built and will be run by a third party that will give the people of Gaza the aid directly. Every day, thousands of Gazans will be able to come here, reach this third party, and get the aid directly. We hope this will end Hamas's abuse of the aid coming into Gaza, Hamas's abuse of the people of Gaza, and that the people of Gaza will be able to receive the aid directly. During this war, the IDF has facilitated the entry of over 1.7 million tons of aid into Gaza. What has Hamas done? Hamas has looted that and prevented it from reaching the people of Gaza directly. We're standing here in this logistical area that the IDF built and will be run by a third party that will give the people of Gaza the aid directly. Every day, thousands of Gazans will...
There you go. So every day, all the Gazans are going to show up and they're going to get the humanitarian aid distributed to them. IDF has put plenty in. I don't need to get that deep into propaganda. Let's see what it looked like as they were actually getting it handed out to them. And then we're going to get and see what it looked like immediately following that. So from what I can gather is they ended up breaking all of these things down and turned them into these humanitarian aid packages and or boxes. They're not giving out massive bags of wheat and flour and crap like that. They're giving out boxes to sustain people for a day or 2 days or however long it's going to be. HESCO is much better than sandbags. Totally agree with you. Just hate filling the dang things. Yeah, they will just, yeah, well, wait. Just wait till you see how this unfolded. This was day one of everything being distributed. Wait till you see how it unfolded. I mean, so far, so good, right? People are happy. People are lined up. They're doing the right thing. They're cheering. They're excited. Yay. Look at that. We're actually being handed out humanitarian aid. They're freaking pumped about it, as they should be, right? Because Hamas isn't over there stealing it, and they're not doing any of that crazy stuff. Again, these lines went on for freaking days, it looked like, over there today when they were lining up to receive this humanitarian aid. I mean, look, they did a pretty dang good job, right? Getting all the people out there and getting all that up. And again, you just have mounds upon mounds upon mounds of these humanitarian aid boxes that are built up over inside of freaking Gaza that are being, again, distributed allegedly into 2 different points. How it ended up turning out, though, is quite the opposite. Probably about an hour ago, we ended up getting reports that Gazans had broke through the aid distribution sites, and that in addition to the breach that ended up happening over at these aid distribution sites, so they basically overran the dang place and started stealing all the aid. U.S. contractors allegedly ended up abandoning their positions over at these distribution points, and prior to that happening, I guess IDF helicopters were flying over and firing warning shots. Gazans obviously continue to loot their aid because they know that as long as all they're doing is looting and stuff like that, lethal force isn't authorized. They can't do shit about it. Nobody's going to go over and just massacre a bunch of civilians for stealing freaking aid. That wouldn't look good. And so, yeah, they ended up overrunning it, and chaos has ensued. So now you just have a metric ton of people that went in there and started stealing it all. 8,000 food packages given away. The rest was looted. 8,000 total food packages. That's coming from Notorious Maximus. You know, that's a lot of humanitarian aid that ended up getting looted. I'm not sure if I ended up giving that shout out to Incognito Verde for coming in and gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate it. But I did see that it looks like the, what was it? Oh, never mind. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. Did you guys see the new Shahed defense system? Ukraine released 150K per? No, I did not get to see that yet. I'm really excited to see it today, though. I actually look forward to it. So yeah, they went in and they looted everything. IDF continued up airstrikes and stuff like that over inside of Lebanon, targeting key Hezbollah members that are wishing to do them harm, taking them out in airstrikes. So you got to give IDF a little bit of credit because they are fighting wars on 2 different fronts, and over inside of the West Bank, they're still going to town. Now what I want to do is I want to just bring this up, okay, and start getting this out to you guys. Now we're going to jump over because because Gaza is going to do Gaza things for a little while. It's got to breathe, and we got to get some more information out of there. But to me, one of the biggest things that we need to start going over is Ukraine and Russia, because this is going to be an issue. And it came to a head really, really quick over this weekend. It started to come to a head last week, and now it's just out there in the open. This was Trump on May 19th. He said, just completed my 2-hour call with Putin. I believe it went very well. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. Amazing that was his sentiment when we have been sitting here talking on this channel since, I don't know, before the election. I said, listen, Trump does not understand Putin, in my opinion, and he doesn't understand the conflict as a whole. He doesn't understand what's going on with the people there, and it's going to turn into a nightmare, and he's going to find out really freaking quick that you're just not going to end this war overnight. Ended up trying to bring that up, and it seems to be true. This is a statement that ended up coming out on the 20th from Donald Trump.
You mentioned that you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine yesterday. So what makes you think that he wants peace?
Well, he's in a war, you know. I mean, nobody said don't. They're fighting, they're attacking each other, and people are dying all the time. He's in a war. He's fighting a war. Nobody said he was going to stop. I think, is it terrible? Yeah, it's terrible. I think it's terrible.
Can you wait on President Biden?
So he gets asked on the 20th about Putin attacking Ukraine and everything that's going on over there. It seems like he's okay with it, oddly enough. So Trump on the 20th seems like he's okay about these different attacks and stuff that have been taking place. He even got asked on the 21st about the alleged buildup of the military presence, all right, along the borders of Finland and Norway.
People actually love it.
Mr. President, on Russia, are you worried about the reports on a military buildup along the borders towards Finland and Norway?
No, I don't worry about that at all. They're going to be very safe. Those are two countries that are going to be very safe.
And Mr. President, on Russia...
Okay, so he's not worried about Putin amassing troops. And for those that don't know, it would also seem like he's amassing troops outside of Kharkiv as well. And so, all right, we're not too worried about Putin there. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of starts going a little bit weird. Now we have Trump that is, yeah. This is one of his angry tweets. I have always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy with his cap lock on. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot into cities in Ukraine. Hey, welcome to the frickin' party, pal. That's been going on for years, absolute years, where that's been taking place. And it's well documented. I'm going to go over some of the ones from the attack, the last attack on Kiev last week. I've always said that he wanted all of Ukraine, not just a piece of it, and maybe that's proving to be right. But if he does, it will lead to the downfall of Russia. So now we have Trump, and I feel like when he makes these angry freaking tweets, this is really where his mind frame is at, and I want you to pay attention to that. I've always said that he wants all of Ukraine, not just a piece of it, and maybe that's proving to be right. But if he does, it will lead to the downfall of Russia. Likewise, President Zelensky is doing his country no favors by talking the way he does. Everything out of his mouth causes problems. I don't like it, and it's better to stop. This is a war that would never have started if I were president. This is Zelensky's, Putin's, and Biden's war, not Trump's. I'm only helping to put out the big, ugly fires that have started through gross incompetence and hatred. It's funny that he's actually saying that now, because this is also coming from the same guy that said Biden gave him blankets and Putin gave him guns, right? And he's talking about like the javelins that he ended up providing to Ukraine. Ended up being one of the first freaking suppliers of it, to actually give like lethal aid and stuff over there. But now he's talking about, nope, it's theirs. When truthfully, Trump was the first person that ended up doing that. This is the statement that Trump ended up making following that attack.
Yeah, I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him. But he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay? We're in the middle of talking, and he's shooting rockets into Kiev and other cities. I don't like it at all. Yeah, I'll give you an
He's shooting. I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. Dude, Putin hasn't changed this entire time, Trump. Like, and this is where, like, I saw this interview and I was like, maybe Trump needs to start firing some advisors. You know what I mean? If he was unaware that has just been an ongoing issue in places like Odessa, for example. And you know what? Hell with that. Not just Odessa, also Kiev, also over in Lviv, several like, dude, like the like major, like the biggest freaking city, the furthest away from the front line, not the biggest city, but furthest away from the front line, Lviv, on the complete opposite side of the country, has been attacked by cruise missiles before. Like, this is nuts. For him just to be like, I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I didn't know he was doing this crap. Like, who would have thunk it? Yeah, well, maybe you need to fire some people and pay attention. Here's what Lviv looked like, ladies and gentlemen, following, or I'm sorry, not Lviv, Kiev looked like following the last attack. Nanner gang. No, it's not a personal comment. It is just a fact. All right, that Putin has been doing this for a long time, and Trump should have been aware of that. I see Brian MC says your channel would be more effective if you kept your personal comments in check, like the left-wing media. Once the commentator deviates from the facts, it's blah blah blah. This isn't a blah 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 scenario. This is a fact-driven scenario that Trump should know that. Trump should know that. He's the president of the United States of America. Trump should know that, Brian. I hate to tell you that. Trump 1000% should know that this has been taking place for a very long period of time. And this shouldn't come as a shock to him. And part of what I do on this channel is let people know what the facts and the truth are, and also give projections, which is why I said Trump is not, all right, very well schooled on freaking Ukraine. He's not at all. He's not very well schooled on, this entire conflict in general and what it's going to lead to. And that was one of my main concerns. This is coming from a guy, I voted for Trump because of his views and his stance on the Middle East, because I viewed at the time the most existential threat to the United States to be the Middle East, but also recognized, all right, because I didn't think Kamala Harris is going to do a good job over there, but I also recognize the fact that Trump doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes to over there. Speak the truth, won't speak the truth, that this was a response to an attempt on Putin's life. Again, where are the substantiated reports that go to that? I've seen all of the unsubstantiated reports that end up talking about drones and things like that going after Putin's helicopter. But if you want to speak the truth on that, we can go back to when Zelensky was traveling outside of Kherson and he was driving away in his vehicle and they tried to freaking schwack Zelensky with a series of airstrikes as well. So it's a war. People are killing people, and they already tried to kill Zelensky. And that, dude, this has been going on for a long time. I'm sorry that Putin finally got his coming. I don't know if you know this or not, but Putin quite literally is a war criminal. All right. And he is wanted for his role in this entire conflict. So yeah, he's a damn war criminal. On top of that, he invaded another country. A country that Russia promised not to, like, it is quite literally, he invaded a country whose borders he said he would respect twice. Russia said 2 times in history, signed their name on a dotted line, that they would respect the sovereignty of Ukraine, that they would respect their elections, that they would do all sorts of things. And so if that is his complaint, that somebody tried to kill him, I don't know what he expected when he tried to frickin' kill Zelensky. I sure as crap don't know what he expected when he decided he would invade Ukraine. So if that's what you want to complain about in the comment section, that somebody tried to kill the man that's responsible for over 1 million freaking deaths, go ahead, complain about it. Complain about it. Go for it. I don't give a shit. But my job here is to tell you actually what's going on and the truth behind it. So if you don't like that, okay. But we can go tit for tat and we can go fact for fact and we can go back and forth all day long. The short round says, tomorrow I go to inpatient facility and will gone almost a month. Love you, brothers. Short round, man. Take care of yourself in there. Good luck, man. We'll pray for you over here. Again, more damage. More damage. And more damage. This has been going on for quite a long period of time, and I've got this odd feeling, right? I've got this odd feeling that things are really going to start coming to a head for Putin, and that the United States is finally going to pick back up and start sending stuff out. you don't get to cause destruction like this. You don't get to cause destruction like this without getting a response from the international community, particularly when you're thrust into the limelight. I disagree on who started the war. Yeah, sure. And you can sit back and you can make all sorts of freaking disagreements on who started this war. We can go all the way back to the 2000s when Putin and Russia ended up getting caught influencing in the early days, in the early elections, all right, over inside of Ukraine, when it was caught and widely known on an international scale that that's what was taking. We can go to 2011 and we could talk about that particular election and the international committee that was over there monitoring it, that if that stuff was taking place in any other country on the planet, you would have known that, how do I want to say this? That, yeah, there was 100% a bunch of BS that was going on. I did an entire video. You're talking about like threatening freaking people, not monitoring the polling stations correctly, not being transparent at the polling stations, buying votes, and all sorts of other crap that was taking place back then during that particular election. And if you want to jump up to 2014, we can talk about that one as well. And we can talk about what actually took place over in Maidan when they started protesting because that president wanted to start moving away from the EU, all right, and people were protesting peacefully. And then for protesting, they were getting taken up, beaten. There's documented cases of people that were, and this is on international record, where these people were getting beaten inside jails by Ukrainian cops, drag outside to the point where they were freaking like basically froze to death because they couldn't care for themselves. All of these gross freaking violations of human rights, right? And then they turned violent and they started shooting people. They passed laws, anti-protest laws. And when all of that failed, and when his law enforcement, when the president's law enforcement ended up losing its shit and just finally opened it up on the crowds one day, wouldn't you know it, the president ended up fleeing. The idea that that was somehow a CIA coup or that the CIA did that is completely, totally unsubstantiated. It's a false narrative that never happened. It was quite literally the people that were pissed off at the government for doing shady things with Russia. Because, and by the way, where did that particular president go to? We're just going to go the name that shall not be named. Yeah, he went over into Russia immediately following. So it's absurd to me that people want to sit back and try to claim that that somehow Ukraine started this crap. And I say that because of this video that I'm about to open up right now.
Сейчас не буду здесь заниматься вопросами политического характера, но не мы же...
See who organized the coup d'etat in Ukraine? Nobody. People that were absolutely pissed off that you were meddling in their freaking elections for a long period of time, that the FSB and several other people have been influencing over Ukraine politics, seen it firsthand, and they're tired of it. And they finally took a stance and stood up for the country because of what you were doing at the time behind the scenes.
Организовали госпереворот на Украине, понимаете? То есть все время нам говорили, что надо демократия, выборы. Госпереворот совершили. И все как будто так и надо. Кровавый причем. И пошли дальше подавлять там.
And then he goes up and he brings up Donbass. And then they went just pressing Donbass, killing people, helicopters, and planes. No. If I go back and I pull up like early days of the fighting from over there, it quite literally looks like what you would expect to see from an American militia full of fat rednecks that just got given guns and told to go over and fight. That's what, if you haven't seen it, and that's what those early days over in the DPR and LPR look like, right? It's a completely different front line now. It's a completely different military and everything else now. And the only country whose helicopters I know that are actually attacking civilians, which I have on recording here on this channel, is Russia targeting Ukrainian citizens. So, yeah, we can play that game too, Putin.
Донбасс и так далее. Людей там уничтожать с вертолетов и самолетов. Просто нелепо. Вынудили нас просто.
They simply forced us to do what we're doing now. So now this is Putin's stance, that they were forced into doing this because of it. Why? Because Russia wanted all that trade and stuff like that was going to be coming out of Ukraine, and he didn't want it going to the EU. And he wanted to have like essentially a freaking little tassel hooked up to the freaking president of Ukraine to make him dance and do his bidding. And it just didn't happen. And so he got pissed off about that because the one person that he'd invested so much money into during those corrupt ass elections ended up getting freaking rooted out by the people for trying to oppress the people and for quite literal human rights violations. So it's a problem. And then he ended up invading Crimea, claiming that he didn't invade Crimea. Then all of a sudden he did invade Crimea. And then he wasn't in the DPR and the LPR. And then we end up finding out that they are. Before half you guys even knew the shit was going on, I was geolocating Russian troops over inside of the DPR and the LPR. It is absurd to me that I have people that are trying to come in here right now and tell me, nope, that didn't happen. Or that it wasn't there. So let's see what Zelensky had to say about all this. Zelensky, he says, we cannot give it away. He's not giving away his country. It's the property of the Ukrainian people. He is not going to give in to Russian demands. Putin is saying that he will negotiate with them, that he's going to negotiate with them, but his negotiations have stuck quite literally to you're giving up basically all of the terrain that we took. Brian Johnson, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings, man, but you kind of get the idea, right? Like, I'm not lying. I'll go pull up one of the videos here. So Zelensky is not going to give up terrain. It's not going to happen. And that is quite literally what Putin wants him to do, is to give up all the freaking terrain that they ended up taking, and it's not going to happen. They're just not going to end up standing for it. Now, on the plus side, all right, on the plus side, oh, where did it go? That's not the one that I wanted. That's not what I was looking for. We all know that. Here we go. Ukraine can now attack military positions over inside of Russia. And that's kind of some good news, right?
Es gibt keinerlei Reichweitenbeschränkungen mehr.
Germany came out and said, there's no point in me even putting this up there. Germany came out and said that Ukraine is allowed to use its munitions in order to attack Russian military positions over inside of Russia, basically giving them a free-for-all to go over and do everything that they need to do and start doing it. And the question is going to be whether or not the U.S. is going to end up following suit. All right. Now, here is something very interesting that Putin ended up saying, all right? If the decision to permit a long-range artillery strikes deep inside Russian territory is taken, it will mean nothing other than direct participation in NATO countries, the USA, and Europe in the war in Ukraine. This, of course, will fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. It means that all of these other countries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Решение будет принято. Это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если это так, то, имея в виду изменение самой сути этого конфликта, мы будем принимать соответствующие решения, исходя из тех угроз, которые нам будут создаваться. Если это...
Okay, so you want to take appropriate actions on the threats that are poised to you. Well, unfortunately for Vladimir Putin, I don't think he realizes that those threats are quite literally what he's been perpetrating across the West. We've seen Russian saboteurs get caught over inside of the EU. We've seen numerous members of the FSB get caught over inside of Poland. Obviously, it's taking place over inside of Ukraine. We've had a, how do I want to say this, Slavic-speaking individual that ended up getting shot by a U.S. Special Operations soldier over inside of North Carolina. And we can go on and on and on and on and on about the different ways that Russia has been doing things. I can point to you guys a attack that ended up occurring on Marjorie Taylor Greene, where the IP address ended up coming out of Russia that ended up perpetrating said attack. All right. There's all sorts, and that was December of 24, by the way. I want to say it was December 8th of 24 over inside Georgia where that ended up taking place. So I can point to all sorts of things that show that Putin has already stepped up his game. And I think Putin's response, what he is going to continue to do here, is not going to be traditionally what you would think. This is not going to be a hot war between the United States and Russia, where you're going to have you're going to have Russian troops and United States troops that are just going to be trading rounds back and forth, or Russian troops and German troops trading rounds going back and forth. You're going to end up seeing more and more attacks like that taking place, to where you have these Russian saboteurs that are coming over and causing like death and destruction, and trying to do things behind the lines. Everybody kind of turned a blind eye to what took place down at Trump's golf course in Florida during his second assassination attempt. All right. But it's pretty obvious that that gentleman that conducted that attack ended up having help. And they tried to paint it as a pro-Ukrainian individual. Right. And he was. And he was a nut job. But what they forgot to tell you is that while that gentleman was over inside of Kiev, he was likely approached by an FSB agent, made him think that he was recruiting for the Ukrainian military. He was posting people on like Facebook, on freaking like open source websites that wanted to go from other countries and go into Ukraine and fight inside the Ukrainian military. Everybody's like, oh, look at this guy. He was actively recruiting for Ukraine. That's not how recruiting for Ukraine works. But he clearly thought that's what he was doing. Now, the Russian FSB, on the other hand, could use that information to great extent, targeting those people that want to come to the front line and fight for Ukraine, or know when they actually cross and come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Steve Walke ends up coming in, gifting out a Speak the Truth membership. Additionally, when that guy ended up attacking, all right, Donald Trump, it most certainly would appear as if, all right, Ukraine like orchestrated that whole attack, because at the time we had this angry sentiment that was going on over here in the United States, again, based on false narratives that Donald Trump wasn't willing to support Ukraine, because during the border bill that ended up getting passed, during the border bill that ended up getting shot down when Trump ended up calling in and telling all the Republicans in Congress, like, if you guys do this shit, you're not going to have my support because this is a bad deal for America. He didn't care that Ukraine was in that bill. But allowing up to 8,000 illegal immigrants to cross the border in the United States on a single day was a bad deal for America. When the unilateral bill for Ukraine ended up coming out, it passed without a problem. When the unilateral bill for Israel came out, it passed without a problem. But the narrative that got spun in mainstream media was that Donald Trump hates Ukraine. And Trump didn't even speak shit about Ukraine. He was just ticked off of what was going on down at the U.S. border, which we're going to be covering pretty dang extensively here over this next month. So get ready for that, because the border is not what you think. Oh, my God. However, the prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine did still get completed. 1,000 and 1,000 ended up getting swapped back and forth over 3 days, culminating on Sunday. This is the welcome home that these gentlemen that were being held captive inside Russia ended up getting. Tom Bones coming in, gifting us Speak the Truth membership. Greatly appreciate you, brother. Now, here's the crazy thing. The United States of America used to look this way following 9/11, for those of you who are old enough to remember. Infected Mushroom coming to the 5. He says, Majority Taylor Greene can get it. She's thick but firm and tan. Okay, back to politics and stuff. Dude, every single time I mention a female on this podcast, you guys end up getting some of the most freaking, like, I do not understand what it is that you, like, I don't... What is with you guys, man? Like, every single time, like, I feel like I just have a number of like highly simping dudes that end up following this channel for some really weird reasons. Or at least you guys are some of the loudest in the comment section. Love it though. Good on you. Alleyway June says, Matt, how do you feel about Ukrainians that came to the U.S. due to the war are now scared that they might get deported by Trump? Tough shit. That's how I feel about it, Alleyway June. Not to be a jerk about it, but that's exactly how I'm going to say it. And I say that because we have volunteers from the United States that are going over, fighting, and dying for Ukraine. Meanwhile, you have Ukrainians that are too chicken to fight for their own country that got invaded. So I say TS. And I've said that directly to their face. When I was over in LA for the funeral that you guys helped fundraise for, I went out for some drinks with the gentleman from Ukraine that ended up escorting his body home, friends of Ethan, everybody else. And as we were like leaving this freaking location to like go back to the car, a guy speaking perfect Russian ended up walking up to one of my buddies, flicking the Ukrainian flag patch on his uniform, and in perfect Russian, not Ukrainian, in Russian, is like, what the F is that all about, you know? And like flicks his freaking flag, you know, like, you even freaking do anything with that? And I looked at him and I asked him what the F his problem was in Russian. And he goes, whoa, 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 it's not like that. And I said, no, it's exactly like that. He said, look, man, I am Ukrainian. And I said, okay, well then what's your freaking problem? And he goes, look, man. And I was like, no, I asked you what your problem is. And he goes, well, we're on the same side. Maybe we came off here. You know, I don't know. We can't, like, no, buddy, no. I was like, if you're Ukrainian, why aren't you in your country fighting for it? Why are you here right now if you're going to make that claim? Because I've seen the money you spent tonight. So I'm assuming you bought your way out. Get your ass back over there and go fight for your people so my friends can stop dying for you. So I am perfectly acceptable having those people. I'm perfectly okay with having them get their freaking butts kicked and get their butts sent back to Ukraine. Women and kids, I'm okay with that. I think there needs to be a way to get the women and children out of there. Human sex trafficking, all of that crap is a very big issue. And I've talked about that before over on the borders. I've gone over, I've seen it myself. I've looked at different intel reports that actually show all this crap taking place and what's actually been happening to them, which is why I started the nonprofit to take care of the women and children who were displaced inside of Ukraine so that they didn't have to subject themselves to that once they crossed the border. Tulsi Gabbard, wait, what? Said Tulsi Gabbard got my thumbs up, but now, yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people are a little bit upset about politics, you know? They are. And it's just kind of the way it goes of what's taking place. Front lines and fiber optic drones. This was probably one of the most interesting videos that I ended up seeing coming out across the front lines with these fiber optic drones. Look at the amount of freaking fiber that is like on the ground here in this video. Now, if you look at this field, obviously you're paying attention to, you know, the lines that he's dragging this video. But if you look out in the middle of this field with where that sun's at, you can actually see the freaking fiber that's just kind of like stretched everywhere. If you guys see, like, watch right over here, you can actually see it glistening off of everything. Watch.
Ваня, а ти чого собі не взяв? Ти чого собі не взяв лески? Піймали карася.
That's freaking nuts that there's that much of it. And the reason they end up doing that, for those of you guys that don't know, is basically electronic warfare can't really attack it. When you have that chunk of fiber, it's like tow missiles, for example. You can adjust it along the way as it's being fired, right? It's just guided by a wire. And so they're just literally launching these drones, sending them out there, and they're having great effects on target. So even drone warfare now is starting to change as well. Michael Snell's come out and gifting out 11 euros. Appreciate you, brother, with a big fat happy heart. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that donation, sir. Love every single donation, you guys. It does mean the world to me, big or small. I do appreciate them as it goes out. We're still going to be covering the I just want to give you guys, you know what? No, let me show you this, because a lot of people for some reason haven't seen this. So let me open this up because I said I would, and I like sticking to that. Yep. A lot of people, again, when I say like what they look like, I don't want you to be upset when I tell you that the front lines over in Ukraine back in 2014 quite literally look like that. See if I can find a quick video of it, but I can't. It's not coming off at the top. So I'll prepare those for tonight's stream so that you guys can see like this, the huge difference in between those two and what they actually look like back then and what was going on. But this is something that I ended up wanting to cover. I'm getting back into covering this, and I'm talking with Nate Vance about it. And we're going to be going over, I'm going to have him interview me because we've gotten to the point where this needs to happen. This is from the Tesla Cybertruck bombing that ended up taking place on January 1st of 2025, involving an active duty U.S. Army Green Beret. The ATF ended up stating that he purchased both of these weapons illegally over inside of Colorado, I believe, before he ended up driving it down to Vegas, where this explosion ended up taking place. The only problem is there's a bunch of inconsistencies that's taking place, and I've been putting them out breadcrumb by breadcrumb, and I've got a lot more information that has not been publicly released that we're going to end up talking about. What you're looking at, all right, is the Desert Eagle pistol that ended up coming out of the car. Now, something that I want to point out to you guys, and before I even go on to this next image here, all right, is that this is a brand new Desert Eagle. This version of this pistol came out in 2024. All right, so this pistol ended up getting released in 2024. Nobody, like, there is one manufacturer of this pistol, and that's it. There is just one. All right, Magnum Research. And you can see right there where they end up putting that on their slide. See it? Magnum Research, and see where it's at. I want you to pay attention to how you have these like lines right here that are going across. Okay, you see, guys, see these lines? See how well you can make out those lines right here? You guys can see these lines, no problem. And you can see Magnum Research, no problem. All right, but for some reason, when we go back over here, all of that seems to have gone away. It doesn't exist on the side of the pistol. Kind of weird, don't you think? We've also got several other inconsistencies that we are going to be talking about in this interview. We've got the inconsistencies of them saying intraorbital gunshot wound and then making a press release saying intraoral gunshot wound. The actual coroner's report hasn't been released. We have issues with the Public Affairs Office of the United States Army, right? For the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, quite literally lying to the American public. And again, I have that on audio proof. We've got so many issues that's taking place with this, and it's about time we start calling it out. I do have other information I'm not going to be releasing, but what I'm going to do is put together a buttload of information that you guys don't know and that hasn't been released publicly, and I'm going to be putting that information out. So if you're not yet, I highly suggest you subscribe to the channel, follow this, because this is where we're going to be making the announcement about where you're going to be able to watch that and where it's going to go. And you guys are going to freaking absolutely love this. I'm giving an exclusive interview to Grant Stinchfield over on Real America's Voice on this entire deal. We're going to freaking set the record straight on this. Pedro Garcia says, can't figure out, put maybe Matt can help. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he did oral so much on it, so it went off. Nope, not how that works. When you actually hear the dimensions of this pistol, blow your mind. It's almost an entire foot long. All right, you're talking about almost a 2-inch tall. See this right here? From here to here, all right, from bottom to top of the slide, it's a little under 2 inches. All right, this is a very tall pistol, so I want you to picture 2 inches, okay, 2 inches, and shoving that into your mouth. Most adult males can't do that. It's just not going to happen unless you end up turning the pistol sideways. It'll fit that way most of the time. All right. Not to mention the trigger problem that you're going to end up having when you try to turn it around and stick it in your freaking face. So now you've got to hold it like this. Now you've got to hold it backwards, kind of like with two hands, like pulling the trigger with your thumb in order to make it happen. But wait, it's got to fit in your mouth, so you got to turn them sideways. So many issues. Could it be a replica? Hey, good call. Could it be a replica? In my opinion, yeah, it probably could be. Nate and I actually sat on the phone for several hours yesterday going over this image right here in particular and determining whether or not we should even show this or talk about it or even put it up or make a post about it. And we ended up doing it. As a matter of fact, if you guys want the link to the post about it, I'm going to drop it in the comment section below, because this is the type of stuff that, you know, in my opinion, people need to know about. You guys need to get this information out there. And we need to not let off this crap, because I want to remind you guys that this stuff ended up taking place underneath the freaking Biden administration. If you guys are watching me over on X right now, there it is. There is the information for you guys. If you guys are watching us over on X right now, it's pinned up over at the top of my profile. Go over there, grab it, and share it. Matt, are those lines not melted off the gun? No, they are not. That is a freaking metal slide. Those lines will not melt off from it whatsoever. And again, I ended up showing you this piece right here to show you that there is decent enough resolution to show it. Okay, so you can see the metal lines right here. All right, the same ones in this image right here. Okay, so you see these lines and you see how you can clearly read Magnum Research on that side of it. Again, over here, you can't. And the same is true on all of the other pistols that Magnum Research and IWI, Israeli Weapons Industries, was the other people that used to produce this. They stopped doing it in 2009. But this, again, IWI never had this pistol. This pistol came out in 2024. So brand new pistol, everything else, but now it's lacking markings. And so the question is, where did it come from and why does it have these markings on it? And I've got a bunch of information that we haven't even talked about publicly yet that's going to end up coming out of this. Tom Bone says, why does it look like it has a melted fireworks package stuck to it? Oh, buddy, we'll get into that here in just a sec. Trouble Actual says, I trust you, Tardio, to use this for what you think is best suited. Love you, brother. Thank you, Trouble Actual. Greatly appreciate you, man. Lots of things it needs to go towards. Now, I ended up pointing this out a little bit ago. Like, that's not the purpose of this. Up over glued to the front, it certainly appears to be you know what? Let me just back out of here so I can show you guys this. The other interesting part about this pistol itself, and that image of the pistol that ended up going out, looks like it has the recoil spring and guide rod of a Glock that is just melted to the front of it. I put that out last week and tried to show that to everybody. I'm going to pull up that image for you guys real quick. I shared it last week, so you got to give me a second so I can pull that up. It most certainly, in Matt's opinion, has absolutely no business being on this pistol. All right, check that out right there. Anybody recognize that right there inside that circle? Anybody at all? You guys are more than welcome to get it. If you want to see it in person and see what that sucker actually looks like, I'm going to drop that in the comment section as well. If you guys want to take that, go take a look at it and share it. This is the image that ended up coming off of it. So again, lots of other inconsistencies and issues with this particular, how do I want to say this? With this particular, pistol image and everything that they ended up showing. Because if he died from intraoral gunshot wound, number one, how the hell did it fit in his face? Let's see here. Let me get this back into the chat for you guys if you want to be able to see that. Let's get that. Asked AI to do a comparison of what it would look like. Not that I can't find people pretending to do this crap, but at the same time, I also asked AI to do a comparison of what that would look like with a 6-foot adult male and show what it would look like for an intraorbital gunshot wound, which we'll talk about briefly. Intraorbital gunshot wound. And as you can see, this pistol itself is coming off, like, again, it's a foot long. Okay, this is fairly accurate. Now, AI couldn't even come up with a way to make this actually happen, because this is the public statement that the sheriff's office ended up making, or excuse me, Las Vegas Metro ended up making, that it was an intraorbital gunshot wound. And then they had a press release that called it an intraoral. The interesting thing about it is he said the coroner was being very, you know what? Maybe I have the video of this sucker that I'll just, do I have? Yeah, here we go. I want you guys to listen. Listen.
Self-inflicted gunshot wound by the suspect. The coroner was very specific in their examination. It was an intraorbital gunshot wound.
Intraorbital gunshot wound. And then he goes and says, which essentially
means that the suspect put the firearm in his mouth and discharged the gun, and ultimately the round came out.
Which ultimately means the suspect put the
self-inflicted
firearm in his mouth
and pulled it. The coroner was very specific in their examination. It was an intraorbital gunshot wound.
Now, if we're going to get into specifics, and I'm just giving you guys a taste of kind of what's to come out of this as we creep forward. This is an old one that I ended up doing. This is approximately 2 frames later from the security cameras. Security cameras go at about 30 frames per second. Okay, so this is 2 frames into the security camera. All right, of what ended up happening post-blast. And in the first frame, what you end up seeing is the deflagration starting down here. And we have a lot more info. I actually had Nate dig into something else as well. It breaks down to less than 1/10 of a second from the moment that that ends up happening. Now, if he had shot himself intraoral prior to the sucker going off, and then he was just sitting there and it was like boom, and then blast, we would see a much different picture. Right? That's not the case. We don't see him completely and totally slumped over. When you do that and you blow the brains out the back of your head, you end up falling straight down. Yeah, intraorbital is I. You are correct, Amanda. You and I both agree on that, but the Las Vegas Metro PD is sticking with intraoral. Kind of weird, don't you think? Now they're saying intraoral mouth. I agree. But the man very clearly stumbled over himself and said intraorbital, and then he corrected himself and said intraorbital. Those are two completely and totally different freaking words. So for them to come out and try to state that, it's freaking madness that all of a sudden it was shot in the mouth and not intraorbital. You know how many suicides happen intraorbital? Not that many. So you're looking at less than a tenth of a second later. Now, the body doesn't have the time in that tenth of a second. As a matter of fact, once you go limp, you start taking like rate of fall, et cetera, into place. If it was an intraorbital or intraoral gunshot wound at this point, guess what? He would not be sitting upright. And if it was right before the detonation, you would be able to see his hands holding up that freaking firearm. So if his hands aren't holding up that firearm and his body is still sitting upright, because again, his body is going to slump over at the same exact rate. Correct? Yes. Everybody nod and smile. But it's not slumped over. It's sitting straight up. So his body and the freaking firearm are going to fall, generally speaking, rough the same rate with his hands and everything else. None of that crap adds up. And I'm kind of over it. And we're going to have a discussion on this. And we're going to have a other discussion about a ton of crap that the Las Vegas Metro PD decided would be a good idea to leave hanging out in the open. So we're going to go over all of that stuff, and we're going to go over how ridiculous this entire situation is. You guys are going to love it. I'm telling you right now, if you want anything, like if you want even the inkling of a reasonable doubt, that's one thing. But I promise you, what Nate and I have put together for this is going to shatter what the FBI, what the ATF, and what the Las Vegas Metro PD has actually put out about this. I'm over it. It will absolutely shatter their shitty police work. And I hope you guys look forward to it. Well, again, you're talking about less than a tenth of a second after the first detonation, or after the first spark occurred inside of the vehicle. That's what you're looking at, about a tenth of a second after the first spark occurred inside the vehicle. So look forward to it, ladies and gents. It's going to be a freaking wild ride, I promise you. With that being said, I got some other things I need to take care of. I got a doctor's appointment I got to get my butt off to. I appreciate you guys for stopping in this morning for another episode. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe, follow the channel, do everything that you can, spread the word, take those links I put, go share the crap out of them. Every little thing that you can do help. Smash the like button before you get out of here. Drop hundreds in the comment section to help boost the algorithm and continue to push this channel forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate every single one of you and everything that you do for me, that you do for the channel, that you do for the community, that you guys do for each other over inside of the Discord. If you haven't become a true supporter yet, please consider becoming a true supporter. It is less than the cup of coffee every single month, and it helps to support the channel and keep us moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Peace.